We begin today's recording by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are on. I am on Burrawang land. Where are you, Breezer?
I am on the land of the Djajarurrung people.
We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are tuning in today.
And wherever you're listening to the potty today, make sure you know whose land you're on. Join us each week for some booze-free banter about life without booze.
If you're entertaining cutting back your booze by a day, a week, a month, or for the rest of your life, we would love for you to tune in.
Buckle up and come along for a ride that may just change your life. Just a heads up, some of the conversations we have may be triggering. Reach out to your local support centre in Australia. That's Lifeline 131144. It's cracking can, mate. So what are you drinking today?
I'm on the Altina. I went to roll the tongue like you did today. La en Rose.
I am also on the Altina La Vie en Rose. It's such a good drop. It's one of three of their flavours in the Altina drinks range. We love their drinks. And guess what, Meso?
Tell me.
Our listeners have a 10% off discount code exclusive to BFB, Booze Free Bants listeners. What's the code, Meso?
BFB10. Get your 10% off. Get amongst it.
Get around it, peeps. Meso!
Breezer! How are ya?
I'm great. I am just full of inspiration and just bloody love the guest we have just spoken to. Introduce her, Meso.
She is Katherine Elliott. She is the alcohol mindset coach. She is the CEO of My Best Friend, and I want to be a best friend.
Oh, absolutely. And as we discover in the potty, she has several nicknames.
Yeah.
Which they come out throughout the potty. What a story she has to share today, mate.
She's a dream. She gave us so much goodness, and she's just so gentle, and she's perfect for that coaching space, isn't she?
Totally. And just relatable. Like,
yep.
All her stories, I'm like, yeah, we were just nodding the whole way going, yep, with her binge drinking. She was a classic binge drinker, wasn't she, Meso?
She was our type of gal.
Yep, I type of gal, and she had a huge curveball come her way, which you'll learn about in the potty. So I reckon, guys, buckle up. Come along for the ride. You're going to need to buckle up tight.
Here she is.
Let's get amongst it with Katherine Elliott.
A big booze-free Bants with buddies. Welcome to our guest. She is the alcohol mindset coach and CEO of My Best Friend. Best Friend? Yes.
Yep.
And she's a long-time listener. She was nearly our first-time caller. I think you slid into our DMs fairly early on to tell us your story, and we can't wait to unpack that today. So welcome, Katherine Elliott.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Breezer and Meso. Very excited.
Oh, we can't wait to unpack this. So you've heard the potty before, Katherine, and you know how it rolls. We're into season 2, so we're on to confession session.
Confession session. It's time to play. Where you tell us what you're ashamed to say. Confession session.
Confession session. Which confession do I disclose here?
You want your juiciest one, Katherine?
Yeah, totally. So, a few came to mind, but probably one of the most embarrassing ones for me was I had been overseas. I had been in liaison with my ex-boyfriend at the time. He was seeing someone else, but he promised me that on my sort of surprise arrival home that he'd broken up with this other person and that we were going to be reunited. And, so I was super, super excited. He picked me up from the airport and proceeded to tell me that, no, he hadn't broken up with this girlfriend and that he was having a party, a massive Christmas party that night, and, that I was very welcome to attend. And I was like, oh, my God, I had these dreams of he and I embracing and, spending the whole sort of afternoon together. And I proceeded to get home and call a couple of my good friends who bought a bottle of vodka and proceeded to kind of drink it that afternoon. The Christmas party that he was having was on the Pollywood side in Melbourne. And so I turned up to the party absolutely hammered and out of my mind, very, very emotional, and proceeded to cause a massive scene in front of about 60, 70 people, swinging punches, yelling, screaming, falling over. It was horrendous. I got my arms held back by two of my guy friends.
Restrained.
Yeah, restrained. And all I remember really is waking up the next morning with like a huge hangover. But I had tears like kind of caked all over my face, but they tasted like vodka, and it was just horrendous. And I still get people, that was 25 years ago, and I still get people who say to me, "You'll never live the Pollywood side down." So whenever I kind of go anywhere near the Pollywood side, I get a bit of a shiver.
It's triggering.
It's very triggering.
I've only met you today, Katherine, and you seem like this gorgeous, gentle, soft, beautiful woman. I cannot imagine you being restrained, just going ape shit at a party.
Oh, yeah. The booze brings out the best in us all.
Absolute riot. Oh, God, you poor thing. What happened to that boyfriend?
Well, interestingly, it didn't. Yeah, we went through a few ups and downs after that and really disconnected for quite some time. But we have reconnected in recent years as friends, and because his wife is actually, she had breast cancer just before I did, and so we've reconnected, and I actually went and had coffee with he and his wife literally earlier in the year, and it was really lovely. So it was a bit of a full circle moment.
Yeah, what a beautiful ending.
Yeah, I mean we didn't bring up. I haven't brought up the Hollywood side with him, but I might tell him that he needs to listen to this episode.
I secretly want to call you Polly from now on. Polly Elliott.
Yeah, I love it, Polly Elliott.
Get into it.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I know
that's a cracker.
Never easy, but
we joke about it.
Yeah,
we can now, but at the time, I'm sure you would have felt just absolute dread
because you're not a violent person.
Oh, not at all, not at all. But we know that when we drink, it can bring out such poor judgment, and our emotional regulation is so just next level not there that. And I had lots of moments actually like that where I would behave in ways that I just weren't true to the person that I really am. So
I can really relate to that. I've spoken about it a lot.
We're both nodding.
Yeah, we're yes, Breezer as well. Like I remember so many times when I was on the booze, people would say, "Oh, you're so aggressive." I'm like, "No, I'm not." I was really offended, and I would really do my head in. I'm like, "No, I'm not." But in reflection, I really was really aggressive.
I want to know, Katherine, did you have a crack at the current girlfriend at the party? Was she there?
She was there. I think she was just watching in horror. And, I was probably doing her a massive favour.
Absolutely.
I was probably thinking, who's this bloody psycho? Thank God you've let her go. She was probably thinking, keep throwing those punches.
She would have been loving it secretly.
Keep being a crazy shit.
Bloody vodka, hey? Vodka. How old were you? How old were you, Katherine?
I reckon I was 23, 23, 24, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was really, I mean, I was heartbroken as well. So, heartbreak.
Oceans.
Plus the mixture of not knowing how to even deal with that, which is all I knew how to deal with any trauma really at that point in time in my life. And for most of my life until I stopped drinking was drinking, was drowning your sorrows, numbing it
Same
all,
here.
trying to forget, right?
Exactly.
100%.
I can really relate to that. It's hard to really harness your emotions on a normal day, isn't it? Let alone with a heartbreak and a gut full of what booze, what vodka was it? Smirnoff.
Yeah, I think so. Something cheap.
Cheap and cheerful. A bottle of, actually, when I was overseas, the guys used to call it a bottle of Bash Your Mates, cheap vodka.
Bash your mates. I haven't heard that one. Can I share the one? Can I share the
They
one?
lose their shit and just want to punch on with your mates. Bottle of Bash Your Mates. Go,
The one I heard recently was rosé, otherwise known as BD, which stands for bitch diesel.
Oh my God.
Isn't that a cracker?
That's good. I like that. We used to call it rosé rage.
Oh, yeah.
Rosé rage. I like that. I'd love to know what Chardonnay. Chardonnay was like my crazy sort of juice.
Crazy juice.
Yeah. Whenever I drank that, it was just like next level crazy.
Worse than the Smirnoff, Katherine?
Yeah. Well, in latter years, yes. I moved away from Smirnoff and bourbon and
Smirnoff.
beer, and went on to the more dignified sort of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
How fancy of you.
Yeah.
Classy. Well, we've got some good names there, haven't we, to wrap up our boozy names. Anyway, so we'll get into the potty, shall we? So, Katherine, on the we're just going to dive straight into it, into the hard stuff. So on the 21st of August 2019, you found a lump. Can you tell us about that and your breast cancer journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are sliding doors type moments in life, and, often in life, every day is just kind of like any ordinary day, and it starts that way. And that was the way, the 21st of August started for me, like any other ordinary day in the week. I had been at the gym and I was rushing to get ready for work. I was running late and I was standing in the shower, and I just, my heart was beating really quickly, and I just stopped and paused for a minute, and I kind of just got some words that came into my head, which was, Kath, slow down. You're going too quickly. Take a couple of deep breaths and go out into your room and look at your body in the mirror. And I just bought this floor-to-wall mirror, this long mirror. And so I put my undies on, actually. I didn't go completely in the nude. Who knows why that was.
Treat yourself.
And decided to stood in front of the mirror. And as soon as I looked in the mirror, my eyes went to my right breast, and I could see that there was kind of this dimpled sort of skin there. There was like a little lump protruding, which ended up being quite a big lump. And as soon as I put my hand on it, I could feel it. And that was like that moment when your heart literally skips a beat, but there's just all this panic and fear in your body. And I knew as soon as I touched it, because I sort of tried to squish it as well, like, oh, what's that? And I knew I had breast cancer. I'm not someone who would generally jump to that conclusion, but I just knew my body, and I was like, I think this is what's going on. So I screamed, like my husband's like, oh my God, what is going on? And I'm like, come up here, fuck. And my boys were downstairs getting ready for school, and he came up and he's like, oh my gosh, that's like it's appeared out of nowhere. Wow. And 2 days later, I had, the diagnosis confirmed of, an aggressive growing cancer that, I started treatment literally less than a week later.
Jeez. Thank goodness you found it, Katherine.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I'm like, I can't believe I didn't find it earlier, because it was quite big. But then what I've come to know about breast cancer is you can have quite large lumps in your breast that can be, hiding within your breast tissue, and that sometimes they can then move, or they get a bit bigger, and then they sort of can appear. And so, I was then sort of, really thrown into, I was thrown into a life that I wasn't expecting really for myself, being in cancer treatment. And this was, only 6 weeks into me choosing to be alcohol-free. So this was right at the beginnings of my alcohol-free journey as well, which again was another really interesting, parallel in this journey for me.
Yeah. Wow. And it's so consuming, isn't it? Once you get that diagnosis, your life is consumed with cancer.
Consumed. It's consumed with, thoughts about it all and what's going to happen, because you really don't know. It was a world that I didn't know much about, because I hadn't had, my mum had no family history. No one really in my family or close friends had gone through it necessarily. And so it's also just this huge, huge learning curve. And I guess one of the things that came to me initially during the first 2 weeks, when I was really in quite a lot of trauma and thinking, oh my gosh, what next, was it came to me, I started thinking about my drinking and my binge drinking, and wondered if there was any links between alcohol consumption and breast cancer. I didn't know really necessarily. I mean, I knew that probably, alcohol isn't great for our health or for cancer generally, but I didn't know specifically about breast cancer. So I started to do some of my own research in those early days, and I was really kind of shocked about what I discovered as I started to do the research. There are so many studies out there that show direct links between, alcohol consumption and breast cancer, and it doesn't have to be a huge, you don't have to be a heavy drinker either. I mean, if you're drinking 1 drink a day, 7 days a week, and that's just what you do over time, you are increasing your overall breast cancer risk by about 14 to 15%. And yeah, it is. It's really, that for many people is very light drinking when you think about just a glass of wine every day.
And I was going to say, I was similar to you, Katherine. I had no idea about or even the fact that alcohol is a carcinogenic. I didn't even know that when I was, drinking, until I stopped drinking and educated myself on it. And probably similar to you, I was quite alarmed that it is a cause of breast cancer. You've mentioned previously that once you discovered that link between binge drinking and breast cancer, that you did feel a sense of relief. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I guess I would describe myself as quite, and even more since I've stopped drinking, but, quite, I guess, an intuitive person. Now, like, I listen to the messages that I get given, and one of the messages that I was given was around drinking and breast cancer, and to look at this lifestyle factor that really I had been abusing and had been very unhealthy in my life for a long period of time. And so the fact that I had looked at this lifestyle factor and had decided before the diagnosis that I was going to leave it behind, there was a huge sense of relief for me in that this is something I can control moving forward during treatment, during recovery, into life after breast cancer. So I actually felt a huge sense of relief, but also quite positive about the fact that I could also use my experience to generate awareness and help other people around this issue, because I didn't believe that there was enough out there and enough people talking about it. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm sure there are other binge drinkers who've had breast cancer, but I sort of thought I had this unique set of circumstances that I could actually start to really generate awareness, and that's sort of what I'm doing now, not only through my work with coaching, but I do work with the Breast Cancer Network, and I'm also working on a couple of other campaigns. I'm doing some work with Hello Sunday Morning on their consumer advisory board, which is awesome.
Very good.
And with the Federation for Alcohol Research and Education, they've just filmed a campaign around lived experience with alcohol, and I am part of that campaign as someone who has a lived experience of binge drinking and breast cancer, and I highlight the issues around alcohol consumption and increased breast cancer risk. So yeah, I'm really, really proud that I've been able to do that.
Well
We're
done.
proud of that too. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
While we are in this space, did you want to talk about My Breast Cancer, your Instagram, and your alcohol mindset coach as well while we're here?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, My Breast Friend is a business that I guess I created whilst I was sitting in the chemo chair, to be honest, the big red chemo chair. One of the things that I was really cognizant of was that I had not been enough in my own body or listening to my body over many years. I'd really been in my head. And drinking was part of that as well, trying to escape from being present in myself, not only my emotions, but also listening to what was going on in my body. And I hadn't been doing my self-checks of my own breasts. And so I thought, what could I do? What could I create? And I decided that I would create a range of body lotions and body washes that have instructions on the label about self-checking, slowing down, taking a breath, coming back into your body, and pausing, so that when you're in your normal bathroom routine, if you've got one of these products there, it'll just give you that little reminder to self-check. And I guess some funds from each bottle that I sell goes back to the Breast Cancer Network of Australia. So that was almost like a beautiful healing project as well. I developed it and then I brought it to market, and it's just been, as I said, a really cathartic process for me. I would never have created these products if it wasn't for my own experience of breast cancer.
So good. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Instagram account is at My Breast Friend AUS.
Okay.
Unreal.
And then, of course, so 6 weeks before the breast cancer diagnosis, I had made the decision to take an extended break away from drinking. I had such an up and down ride with my drinking over the years, always believing that I would find the sweet spot in moderation somewhere, which just never, ever came. I constantly went from having a binge and then sort of punishing myself by saying, well, you can't drink now for 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever. And then I'd be like, oh, you've been really good. You've had a month off. So, just start to edge your way back in and count your drinks. And I would always end up back in a place of I just wasn't able to control my drinking. It wasn't every weekend and it wasn't every time I drank. But what became apparent to me was I didn't feel happy. I was constantly worried. There was no magical set of circumstances that enabled me to control my drinking. And so it became a constant energy drain in my life. I was just like, I don't know what to do. And even as I was getting older, I could see that when I had a binge, the blackouts were actually getting worse for me. And they were sort of coming sooner as well, like less alcohol required. And I think that the turning point for me was I had one really, really terrible night. We were on holidays up in Queensland, my husband and I and our 3 boys, and we'd been out drinking with some friends of ours, some espresso martinis.
Nice.
No food beforehand.
Of course.
And I think I remember having, like my 3rd or 4th one really quickly. And the next thing I remember is waking up the next morning with a massive sore head, not just from a hangover. Like I must have, I'd hit something. I don't know what. I remember opening up my eyes and my husband was just looking at me like, his head was like there on the pillow, and he's like, "Oh my God, do you remember what happened last night?" And I was like, "Oh my God, no, what?" He goes, "We had to put you in the car, like you couldn't stand up. To put you in the car, we had to drive you home. The boys were really worried about you. They thought that you were going to die."
How old are the boys?
So the boys
At that
were
stage?
like, so this was probably, let me think, 2018 or 19. So my oldest was probably around 13 at this point. Yeah, so 13, 12, and around, 10 or 9. So, little, and they were really worried, and they were trying to get me back up the stairs to where we were staying. And, when you're that really heavy drunk, you just
all floppy and like the Wolf of Wall Street, that scene. I always go back to that scene of the Wolf of Wall Street when he's coming out of his car.
Yeah. And I, literally fell back and hit my head, and the boys thought that I had died.
Oh, poor little darlings.
And so waking up the next day and hearing that story was just, it just made me feel so much shame. And then I realised that, I was role modelling this drinking, type of drinking to my kids as well. So I went for a walk that day and really had a long think, and I thought to myself, I need to take an extended break and stop this toing and froing. I just need to start doing life without alcohol and see how that feels, take the pressure off, stop doing my head in.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily stop right then and there. So that was in the April.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my last drink on the 30th of June, 2019.
Yeah.
And I, my last drink was at home. I was watching the football. I'm a big AFL fan. I was watching my team. I was watching my team Carlton play.
No, I don't mind Carlton. I don't mind them.
They were playing against Fremantle in Perth, and I drank like a bottle and a half of red wine, and I can barely remember, the night.
Did they win?
Do you know what? They won in the last 20 seconds of the game.
Katherine, and you can't remember it.
I can remember that bit.
Okay, that's all right.
I started crying with happiness. Yeah. I do remember waking up the next day and thinking, oh my gosh, I had a hangover, bit of a dry mouth, whatever. And I remember thinking, it's just going to be so good not to have to worry about this.
Yeah.
And so that was the 1st of July. And then, skip ahead 3 years, over 3 years now.
Congratulations.
Alcohol free.
That's amazing.
It's been an incredible experience. It's been full of every emotion, I think, as you guys know.
Yeah.
It's not, sometimes it's not easy. But I guess for me, the best thing that's come out of it is my relationship with myself, which I now honour a lot more.
How good.
Quote that.
Yeah.
Massive quote there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on it before, Katherine, about that defining moment, about, reflecting about the role model you're being for your boys. Has your why changed in those 3 years of you being alcohol free? It sounds like that why initially was, role modeling for your children. Has that why changed as you've gone on the journey?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. I think definitely my why was my kids initially. It was kind of that, because I was in so much shame about it. But I think underneath all of that, as I started to step into the lifestyle and do it, there's the concept of it, and then there's actually the doing of it as well. And then having that kind of paralleled with this weird sort of, mortality check when all of a sudden I've got a cancer diagnosis at 46 and I'm like, holy fuck, what the hell? It then became focused on me.
Yep.
Me, my life. What does my life mean? What do I want it to mean? What legacy do I want to leave in this world? So I became a lot more focused on actually, living and really seeing that as a privilege rather than just a given, I guess. And that for me has been the biggest change, and that my drinking was taking me away from really living the life that I wanted to and being present in that. And when the cancer diagnosis just was like an aha moment, like, you know what? Alcohol basically, it takes you away from your best life. And I was
Yes, thank you.
I don't want to be there. I don't want to be that person anymore. And what I have noticed since I've, taken alcohol away is that I like being in my own company so much more. Initially it's a little bit uncomfortable because you've got to deal with a whole lot of thoughts that start to come in, and I've just allowed and accepted that that's part of, the human experience, that I was pretty much numbing a lot beforehand or trying to avoid. And now I kind of really enjoy it. Like, I don't mind if I'm walking at the park and I start crying all of a sudden, because it's like, you know what? It feels good.
Raw. It's raw and real.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what the interesting thing was? That I stopped after I, stopped drinking and then had that cancer diagnosis. All of a sudden, all of this kind of emotion from the past started to come up that I hadn't processed. So that was really full on as well. Like my first love, my first heartbreak that I had never really dealt with because I drank and just moved on to other relationships and didn't really. This came up for me, and that was so full on. I was like, oh my gosh, this relationship finished when I was, pretty much 21, and I felt like I had a dagger in my heart.
Jeez.
Wow. Intense.
Yeah, really intense. And, I spoke to my husband about it, and he was like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?
Oh, how good that you could chat to hubby about it.
Yeah. He was amazing.
Oh.
He was really, really
what a guy.
Supportive of, what I was going through, and we talked about it a lot.
Oh, love this. Talking about your husband, actually, and you mentioned it before, and we've had it said to us, and we've said it to others too, when you say, do you remember what you did last night? It's a cringy feeling, isn't it? So what did your binge drinking actually look like, Katherine? Like what did it look like for our listeners?
Yeah, so my binge drinking looked like, I guess, I just didn't have an off switch. I used to drink really quickly, and I drink liquids quickly, right? That's just me. I drink water quickly. I drink tea quickly.
Yeah, so do I, come to think of it.
Yeah.
Actually, and you know what? I always get my hot chocolates extra hot, so I don't drink it quick. Maybe that's why I do that. There you go. Just had an epiphany.
Totally. That's so true.
Oh.
And so I think it started off for me as a teenager when I was given a lot of kudos for my drinking prowess as a girl, as a woman. I could drink. Badge of honor. I could drink with the boys. It was part of my identity. I didn't get necessarily, legless really quickly necessarily when I was growing up. I was able to sort of drink a lot, stay up late with the boys. I was the last one up sculling port and God knows what else. And for me, I got a lot of positive affirmation around that. Drinking a lot means you are pretty cool and you're a good person.
Yeah. Didn't you have a couple of nicknames as well? Sorry to cut you off.
What was that? Sorry?
Didn't you have a couple of nicknames?
Yes, I did. So the nicknames were the camel, right?
Hold your piss.
Or the fish.
Drinks like a fish.
Yeah.
Hollywood side camel fish, Elliott.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful.
Oh, wow, that paints us a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I really relate to this getting up the next day and sculling port. Like that would be that's what I would do. That's what I've done. I get it.
And I've witnessed. I bear witness to Meso getting up and sculling rosé in the next day. I've seen it. Yeah. I've told myself I used to go in my head. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But I would be like, why the fuck aren't you doing this too?
Yeah. What's wrong with you? I know. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think, at my worst, my binge drinking was just, poor decision making, blackouts, wetting the bed, arguing with people, being really kind of, I guess, aggressive in the way that I would communicate, not remembering. The hangovers for me weren't necessarily that much of a deterrent because I didn't get the worst hangovers possible. I don't know how that happened, but I didn't. And I never really vomited either. Like, I would just pass out. And so God knows, my poor body had to bloody work through all the toxins. It would have been better if I vomited it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, the hangovers didn't, as I said, they weren't that bad. And so what I would do often the next morning to punish myself is I'd make myself get up early and go, running or sweat it out or do something like that.
You're one of those people.
Yeah,
not
good. Like horrendous, right?
I kind of get it though, because I'll quickly just chime in. I remember one day I was so hungover and my friend and I went to the shops to buy orange juice, water, Powerade, and we punished ourselves and said we had to go for a walk around the lake before we could have any of the drink. Before we could rehydrate, we had to do a couple laps of the lake. So I do get that, Katherine, that whole self-punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the other thing I noticed, that self-punishment, that voice in my head was there constantly over a long period of time. And it did it, it did it about drinking, it did it about exercise, it did it about a whole lot of stuff, about not being good enough and, not. And what I've noticed since I've taken alcohol away is that I am really able to, the voice is still there sometimes, but I'm really able to kind of offer it a bit more compassion and give it the, move it on, and replace it with something that's a lot kinder.
What amazing self-awareness.
Yeah, love that.
It's unreal.
So
Katherine, when you gave up the booze, 1st of July, 2019, what did you tell friends and family? What was it like? Were they supportive? What was their response like?
Yes, I did. I was very open about what I was doing. That was my choice because I it's like when I was pregnant with my kids, I used to tell people straight away. I'm that type of person. I tell people. And so for me, that felt good to say I'm not drinking. I didn't necessarily go into all the details around why I was doing it, but I just said I was taking some time away and I would see how I went. And interestingly, I think the cancer diagnosis helped initially because people didn't really expect me to be drinking whilst I was going through it. So there was no pressure at all. And I was, my social life changed a lot as well. I really became focused on my health in a big, big way. So it changed the way I was living. So that in a way really helped and supported me. And then in Melbourne, where we were hit by COVID in March. And so again, we're in lockdowns and people weren't going out. So I didn't really have that opportunity even to go back into much socialisation really until this year, which was, 2.5 years really after I stopped drinking. But, what I have noticed is, yes, I have had in some friendship groups, there have been some real changes around people who are there for you. People invite you to things, and I have a couple of friends, I would say old friends, and one very close friend who've made a decision to kind of step back, or they've just felt very uncomfortable. That I not only have stopped drinking, but I also am an alcohol coach. So, I'm stepping forward into that place and working in that space as well. I became a certified This Naked Mind alcohol coach last year. And so now I work with what I call, my niche, which is functioning, binge drinkers, episodic binge drinkers who, know they've got a problem but don't know, how to really step into doing the work and what they need to do. And so, I have had a couple of friends who our relationship just is not the same. But I would suggest that that's because we did a heap of drinking together.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we used to really connect. And then it's really kind of hard to sometimes find a way to come back and connect.
Yep.
Gosh. Gee, lockdown really had a lot, didn't it? It helped a lot of people leverage through giving booze the flick, didn't it? When there was no social occasions. Do you know what I mean? And for other people, lockdown was a demise of lots of people's relationship with alcohol. So you mentioned earlier, and P.S., love what you're doing with the Certified Naked Mind. That's amazing. That's good.
Thank you.
It's
you know what? I love it. Like coaching people is just the best because it changes their lives. They change their own lives. They make choices, but you're there as this beautiful kind of, big warm hug, accountability, lived experience of a similar situation. And to see what transforms for people's lives when they change their relationship with alcohol, the ripple effect that has is just insane. And they never thought or believed that this would be possible. Like I have a client who she'd been drinking, pretty much every day for 30 years, bar, being really unwell with sickness or whatever. And she's marrying for the second time in like 10 days. She started working with me about 3 or 4 months ago, and her, she really just wanted to have for alcohol to play less of a role in her life. And, we did a heap of work on a whole lot of stuff. Anyway, she just took the whole month of July away from drinking. So she's had, over a month consecutive. And she texted me last week and said, I'm keeping on going and I'm not going to drink at my wedding, right? And she was like so happy. She's like, I've never felt better. I can't believe this. This is like the best thing that's happened. And, when this happens in people's lives, you're just like, wow. It's
played a part
insane.
of that.
Yeah, it's an absolute gift, isn't it? Sobriety. It really is.
Oh, it really is. And it's interesting. I was at a party actually on Saturday night. First kind of big party I've been to in a while. A friend threw a kind of a random sort of 50th for her husband. It was just sort of off the cuff. She organised it 2 days beforehand. And I went, and I think I was probably the only person there who wasn't really drinking alcohol. And I loved being that observer, that person who's there, who's watching the night unfold. The first few hours are always kind of okay, and then you start to see what happens as people start to get more and more inebriated and drunk. And it's always just a really great reminder to me that, now that I feel comfortable socialising without alcohol, that it's just the best decision, because I still, I leave those functions. I go home, have a shower, have a cup of tea, give myself a high five, focus on what I'm doing the next morning. And you know what?
Love that.
I've had a great night. I've had an awesome time.
Yeah.
And I have had a much better time than I did when I was the last to leave, sort of a dribbling mess, trying to, walk home.
I can so relate to all of this. You touched on it earlier, Katherine, that bit prior to your breast cancer diagnosis, there was a 6-week period, and we want to tell us the highs and lows of sobriety for you.
So I didn't find stopping drinking hard. I think binge drinkers or episodic binge drinkers who don't drink, I didn't drink every day and often wouldn't drink during the week.
Yep.
I was that classic sort of, social binge drinker, or even I would binge at home with my husband on a weekend.
Yeah,
but
Friday night, hello.
Yeah, I had boundaries around my drinking in that way. So to stop drinking for 30 days or 60 days, I used to do that quite regularly because it was this sort of, I'd sort of put myself in that kind of, I'd pay penance every year type thing for my discretions when I was binging, right? So that bit wasn't hard. The bit that was hard for me started to come up as I was stepping more into my alcohol-free life was that I started to realise that drinking, even though I wasn't drinking every day, that drinking had played a massive role in a lot of stuff in my life that I wasn't even aware of, like decisions about, being unfaithful in relationships, just the way I behaved in certain friendships and relationships, the way my husband and I had interacted in a lot of our, just a lot of arguments and things that we'd had. And so I started to piece all of this together, and I was kind of like, oh my God, I never had even had a realistic picture on the insidious nature of my drinking and how much I was thinking about it as well. Even if I wasn't drinking, I would be worried about the next time I was going to drink and how I could try and change the impact of my drinking. And then I was also like, well, you know what? So many of my friends are binge drinkers. I mean, why am I giving myself such a bloody hard time about this?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm a down and out drunk on the street. I'm highly functioning. I never used to really drink at work functions, so I was very controlled in many ways. But then, when I would have a binge, I mean, fuck, I just let loose. It's like the top had bloody come off and off I'd go. It was like, you know what, you've held on to control for so long. Now you're just going to go fucking bananas. And then, then the night would just go kind of berserk, right?
Yeah.
And so, part of me, I can see this part of my personality because I am quite controlled in many areas of my life. And booze gave me this opportunity to just kind of lose my shit and just go into oblivion, right? Just complete oblivion. So even I had to do some work on that side of, myself, and just being able to, face who I am and understand that there was part of that oblivion that I actually really enjoyed and that I was prepared to let go of, because I had to balance it out with all the negative stuff that had started to build up around, my relationship with alcohol. And, I think as Australians in our culture, we have alcohol in every little aspect of our lives. It's just there.
Yeah.
It's there at barbecues. It's there at parties. My parents would have wine most nights. It's there at 18th, at 21st, at weddings, at funerals, at catch-ups with mum, mums and their bubs. And I still see it everywhere. So we get this messaging that, to enjoy life and to get through life, you need to drink. And to unpack all of this conditioning is really super hard. And it takes time. And that's why even 3 years on, I can feel that I'm in a really great place. But I still have to keep reminding myself that we choose this lifestyle. We are actually, I like to think of us as massive trailblazers in this space, because most of society are still drinking and they're still kind of mindlessly choosing to drink without really knowing what life is like without. And I like to take time to acknowledge myself and others in this space and say, fuck, we're actually bloody legends.
Yeah.
Doing this, because it's not easy.
We are.
And it's
Society is a
uncomfortable.
flex.
Yeah, exactly. It's uncomfortable sometimes. And sometimes, you know what? It's easier just to fit in and be one of the crowd, right?
A lot of our listeners, Katherine, are sober curious, or they're just starting out on their sober journey. Sometimes I don't like calling it sober journey, but they're starting out on questioning their relationship with booze. What were some of the tools in your tool belt that you found really helpful? And even 3 years on, what are some of the tools you're still using now and I know you've done the work, which is unreal, but to someone out there who's, literally dipping their toe in this space, what are some of the tools that you found really helpful?
So I think the most important thing is, if you are stepping into doing this work, it's just, I think, just to give yourself a massive pat on the back that you are starting to question what your relationship with alcohol looks like. And that can be in so many different forms, I guess. That can be, taking a break for a little bit of time. It can be having some alcohol-free days. Everyone's relationship with alcohol is really different. So my advice would really be, try not to compare yourself to others. Just try and focus on you. I found it really useful to do some reading and to get some more information around alcohol and how it, affects our brain and the science around it. So I started off by reading This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, which, I am a This Naked Mind certified coach. So I have to say, I obviously really do believe in the methodology, but she comes at it from a place of we need to have new knowledge and information to feed into our brains that helps us make positive choices around, our drinking. And we can't do that by just focusing on stopping drinking. It's actually about looking at what we don't know, looking at some of our thoughts and beliefs and questioning and reframing those. So what I would, offer to people who are curious about it is just start to do some reading, start to listen to, some podcasts, and just, exactly. Of course, there's so much in listening to other people's stories, but also realizing that yours is your own.
Yes, love that.
And I think this community, not only in Australia but around the world, is so supportive. It's just full of like incredibly compassionate humans who are all in different stages of their journey. And you don't have to completely stop drinking to change your relationship with alcohol. And that's the other thing that I would offer, that it's not about the end result of a sober life. That is not for everyone. I make this choice in my life because I believe it's the best thing for me and the type of drinker that I was. But there are other people out there who make a different choice for themselves, and that's great.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important as well. And I try and even emphasize this to my friends who are still drinking. I don't judge people who choose to drink alcohol at all. I'm really happy for them to drink if they're happy with their relationship with alcohol. All power and strength to them. I wasn't happy with mine. It was causing me a lot of shame and embarrassment. And until I took some time away from it, I didn't really know the impact as well. And this is the other thing I would offer to people is, if you've been drinking for a long period of time, consistently, it's just really an amazing experiment just to take some time away in your life from alcohol being part of it and just seeing how you feel. How do you feel in yourself when you're going to a party and you're not drinking alcohol? Are you more reliant on drinking than you thought you were? Even, I've got a couple of friends who have started just through conversations that I've had with them, have said, I don't have a problem with drinking, but you were right. I do drink quite regularly. I'm going to have a month off and see what it feels like. And they've noticed that going into a party and not having a drink actually can feel quite awkward. Yeah. You move through it and you just kind of, you rely on different parts of yourself to show up when you're not reaching for that drink all the time. So I think being sober curious, or being curious about looking and being more mindful about your drinking choices and what they are. And that's the other thing, even with the whole concept of, the links between breast cancer and alcohol consumption. And what I would say is, if you're a woman, every drink you have will increase your breast cancer risk. That's just flat out the statistics. So every drink you choose not to have will reduce your overall risk. So even on a Friday or Saturday night, if you choose to have one less drink, or you choose to have a day where you don't drink, you can kind of look at that as a really positive decision, in that it is, helping reduce that risk.
Yeah, important message.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it really is. And there's a fantastic Instagram handle that I follow called Drink Less for Your Breasts. Cool, huh?
Yeah, very cool.
That it's out of America, but it's all based on doctors who have put together this great campaign that's targeted at women. I think it's generally targeted at women in their mid-20s and up.
Okay.
Just about the role that alcohol plays in breast cancer, and it's not focused on people stopping drinking. It's just focused on people looking at reducing their drinking and how that can help their overall risk.
Unreal.
Yeah, I never thought about. I never made the correlation between breast or cancer, alcohol causing cancer. We do with smoking, don't we? That's put up in your face, but there's never that with alcohol. Are you the same, Breezer? Like it wasn't until we started
totally.
The pod. Never even gave it a thought.
I read William Alcohol Explained book by William Porter, and that really.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Up.
Look,
you got it there too, Katherine. So yeah, that just blew my mind off my head, my shoulders.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the other thing. Alcohol Explained, This Naked Mind, The Alcohol Experiment, Alcohol Explained 2. There's so many there's so much interesting information in these books that I never knew. And I'm so glad I know this now, because when you're informed, sometimes you make different decisions about what you want to do with your drinking. And I mean, the thing about alcohol is it's not just breast cancer. I mean, I think it's linked to 7 other types of cancer, whether that's throat, liver, mouth. I mean, they're just some of them. Stomach, exactly. Yeah. So, it's a class 1 carcinogen, and really, I try to envisage it now as it is like drinking kind of, ethanol. And that's just the simple fact of the chemical mix that it is. We dress it up in all these beautiful bottles and whatever. Yeah. But it's
poison.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Simple.
Well, like if you were rocked up, if you handed me a bottle of wine and it had the side effects and what's going to cause and what's actually, would we still drink it?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't come with that, does it? Your bottle of wine doesn't come with all of those things. But we're learning it now.
So this may cause cancer. This doesn't come with those warning signs.
It doesn't come with that, throat cancer picture that comes on the smoking.
No. Yeah. But I feel like it will. I feel like it will down the track. I feel like we're 20 years away. We're probably where smoking was. But I think over time it really will. We will start to have health messaging on wine and other alcohol. But, there's big alcohol, there's so much money that goes into the coffers. So
exactly.
It's a big deal.
Thank you for that, Katherine. I could listen to you all day.
I know. I feel like I need you to coach me.
Yeah, same.
It's a phone fucking with the PH. So we don't give an F with the call or text. Phone fucking with the PH. Give him a ring. Check it, roll the dex.
So interesting. I think I was saying this to you before. Because I'm a Gen X, so I'm turning 50 this year. My God, like in 2 months.
Happy birthday.
I didn't have a phone during a lot of my, I guess,
thank God, she says.
Yeah. Thank God, exactly. Do you know what I found though? I used to write drunken letters when I got home.
Gold.
I've got them still, and oh my God, the
so
writing,
good.
I can barely read them. They're not legible. I'm like, oh my God.
That's a classic.
Time to burn those maybe. I can't. It's just so funny getting into the head of the drunken,
Who were you writing them to?
20-year-old version of myself. Like to boyfriends or friends and stuff. Like just like dribble.
A spray.
So,
with a pen.
I would have texted it if I had a phone, but I was actually writing it.
Shorthand.
Send it.
Oh,
right?
That's so good.
But I do. One thing that I do remember about my my phone. I think it was one of the first phones that I ever got, which would have been, I reckon, one of those little kind of BlackBerry type
fancy
phones. Yeah. So I had it out with me. I think on one of the nights that I had, I'd gone out, and it was pretty special, right? Because I just kind of got it, invested a bit in my phone plan, and and I'd gone out on this on this kind of date with this guy. I didn't really like him. I didn't really know him that well. And of course, I'd got pretty loose, pretty legless, because that's what you do to get through dates that you don't want to be part of. Anyway, I was like, oh God, yep, let's get me home or whatever. I must have rolled out of the taxi, and I must have dropped my wallet and phone on the side of the the side of the kind of street outside my house, and I didn't realise. Hopped into bed or whatever. Woke up the next morning, and there was someone banging on my door. I didn't know who it was. Went to the door, and the guy's like, "Is this your phone and whatever?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's my phone. Thank God." Anyway, I looked at the phone. Looked at the phone after I'd been given it back, and I'd realised that I had been sending during the night these awful text messages to this guy, saying, just take me home, I'm bored, like really horrible. And so I then had to send him a message to apologise for being just so obnoxious and so horrible. And it was stuff like that. Like I'm not that person. Do you know what I mean?
Who
does that?
I totally pick up what you're putting down.
Don't you think the word obnoxious is just so offensive? And I'm like, we were all that.
We were all that. Yes.
Obnoxious. I know. It's awful, isn't it?
It's terrible. Thank you for sharing.
It's time for the recommendation of the week.
So I guess my recommendation is I've just been last week I went away on a yoga retreat up to a place just south of Cairns in Mission Beach.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the recommendations that I would have for anyone listening is such an important thing in life is to slow down. Give yourself some time to be with yourself, to give your nervous system a break. In kind of this world that we live in, we're so busy.
Yeah.
And I do try and build a lot more of that now into my life, whether that be going on little mini breaks or like last night, because I'm surrounded by boys, teenage boys, my husband, my dog. I came into my study, I turned off the lights, and I just lay down on the floor and did some deep breathing for like 5 minutes to just, really slow down. And I've just noticed that slowing down it feels so good.
Yeah.
And I just don't, I don't think we do enough of it. I don't think we understand the power of it in our lives, and that it's really simple. And it can come back to just closing your eyes and breathing. And for me now, it's also about, I don't need long holidays or long breaks, but just doing small little things, getting out into nature and
that's so
just,
good.
taking it all in. But also, you know what? We are great company for ourselves, and that's the other thing. I love my own company, and that's the thing about this experience of cancer and going alcohol free. It's made me really appreciate, that. And I have no qualms in saying it, the beautiful soul that I really am. And I'm not embarrassed to say that, because I've done a lot of work on myself and I'm not perfect. In fact, I'm very imperfect, but that's okay.
Another quote.
Yes,
What a beautiful way to continue. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and I was just saying, and being part of this community makes us all realise that, that there's so many similarities that, alcohol really took us away from, from the really kind of I guess, deep people that we are, and humans are deep. There's so much going on, and we don't share enough of that. And so when we take alcohol away, we start to connect so much more.
Yes, we do. We do.
And in the vulnerability and connection is just, that's where the magic is for all of us. And so I just hope we all keep, keep sharing. I love
that is
it.
a bloody cracker recommendation of the week. One of my goals this year, Katherine, was to unbusy myself. And, you know, I really think it's shit when people walk around with a badge of honor going, I'm so busy and I've done this, I've done that. I'm like, I actually think, poor you. That sounds really shit. So, yeah, I think there's so much in that, just slowing down. Like, yeah, you don't have to be Superwoman. Like, but we're sort of, again, you're just like, you're popped up on a pedestal if you are a Superwoman, because you're doing this, you're doing that, you got this going on, you got that going on. But at the end of the day, I think that message is so important, just to slow down.
Love it.
Just be.
Yeah, slow down and you know, be really intentional about how you spend your time and who you spend your time with. That's the other thing, really important. How and who. And then you create the quality in your life, and that's the thing again that's been really important for me. I've got, you know, I can play a really active role in the energy created in my life. If it's not good, that's because I'm choosing to do things that don't feel good, or choosing to be with people that don't make me feel good. And so I think we can get in a loop where we blame other people, or we say, oh, you know, whatever. Whereas I'm much more like, you know what, you went there. If you didn't like it, don't go again. Or don't be with those people.
Yeah.
And I think you're able to make those decisions a lot more easily when you're not drinking as well, because you hear it.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one final question? Because I'm sure our listeners are going to want to know, and only if you're comfortable answering it, Katherine, but where are you at now with breast cancer?
Oh, yeah, I am amazing. I was given pretty much the all clear in February 2020. So I'm in amazing health now. I really am. Yeah, I've had I had kind of the best results I could have with all the treatment. And so I'm really just, I've got a clean bill of health, really. I just go and see my oncologist every year.
Yeah.
And she said that, generally my prognosis is really good. So I genuinely feel very, I feel very healthy and happy. And
you can see.
Yeah,
you look like you are absolute
beaming.
Oh, that's so gorgeous. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I know. But, interestingly, as we record this, the beautiful Olivia Newton-John passed away yesterday.
Rest in peace.
And it was really interesting. A few people reached out to me and said, oh, are you okay? And, I was like, you know what? I am okay, because, she was amazing and she did so much in this space, and it's just a beautiful reminder to, just keep actively being involved in your life and doing what you can. And she did that. So for me, it was almost like she was a beautiful reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. Big shout out to all the oncologists and the oncology nurses. They are amazing people.
They are the best. Oh my God. Yeah, that's so true, Teresa. They are amazing. Just the most beautiful hearts. I couldn't have got through it without them. They were incredible.
And you would have been a beautiful patient too, Katherine. Like, I just want to hug you.
Group hugs,
hugging. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I just have one little tiny question I wanted to ask that I should have asked at the start.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I'm always extra. Can't just leave it alone. How big was the lump?
It was 6 centimetres by 6 centimetres, so 60 millimetres, which is friggin' huge.
That's big.
So when I found that out, I was so scared. Yeah. But interestingly enough, the size of the lump sometimes doesn't mean it's necessarily as bad as you think it is, because it hadn't spread to the lymph nodes or anywhere else, and it was just one lump. In many ways, it was kind of good for treatment in some ways for me. So it's really, you don't know any of this until you go through breast cancer. And I could feel the lump shrinking, after every chemo. So I'd be like, oh my God, it's smaller.
Incredible.
And then eventually I couldn't feel it. And the day that I couldn't feel it, I was like, oh my God.
Magic.
It really was. It was the tears came, but
Yeah.
it was really weird because I got so used to feeling it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's gone. Because I was also talking to it as well, because it's just cells in your body, right? So I was actually trying to give it lots of positive kind of reinforcement that it was time to, get out of here.
I love that.
I love that.
Time to scram.
tactic.
Off you go. Shoo.
Yeah. Because some people get them cut out, but I didn't. My advice was not to have it cut out, to go through chemo first, because it would dissolve it away, and that's kind of what happened. So,
yeah.
And that's another important message to our female listeners is go and get your boobs checked. I actually had mine done recently.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Males too.
And males too.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Absolutely. I mean, men do get breast cancer. I mean, it's only a very small number, but 20,000 people in Australia are diagnosed with breast cancer every year. So definitely self-checking, really important. Just do it a couple of times a month. And if you're over 40 and over, you can have a free mammogram. Go and get it done. Build it into your annual health check.
100%.
And drink less for your breasts too.
Mic drop.
Mic drop, exactly.
Oh, thank you so much, Katherine. You've been an absolute delight.
You absolutely have. So
thanks, girls. I've enjoyed it so much. I love your potty so much.
Oh, thank you.
I love it when you go, breather, maso.
We won't disappoint at the start of this ep.
Don't.
Up and about. So to wrap it up then, Katherine, where can we find you again? Tell our listeners, and how can we get behind you with your products to be able to donate as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yes, Breast Cancer Awareness Month is coming up in October. I'm not sure when this ep will land, but you can buy products at mybreastfriend.net. Or you can follow my Instagram, which I've already mentioned, at mybreastfriendaus. And then my alcohol coaching is the alcoholmindsetcoach.com. And my Instagram is at the Alcohol Mindset Coach. So fantastic. I've loved chatting to you guys so much. You're doing amazing. It's just, you're doing amazing work on your potty. Love your guests, and just love how open and down to earth you are. So I'm just, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate
you. Have you on.
100%.
We absolutely love this
Loved
chat. Thank you so much, and it will help so many. So thank you, Katherine. Polly Woodside, Camelfish. We love you.
Polly Camelfish. Polly Camelfish.
Well done. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
This podcast is proudly produced by our audio engineer, music extraordinaire, Eric Ladd.
We love you, Eric.